All righty. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the Tucson, Arizona Climate Action Forum. Harrison Rodacher, and I will be your moderator for tonight's event. We have some amazing speakers with us here tonight, including Lauren Kuby, candidate for ACC, Senator Quezada, candidate for AZ State Treasurer, Brian Radford, LD17 candidate for the Arizona House, Priya Sundarshan, LD18 candidate for the Arizona Senate, Senator Gabaldon, LD21 incumbent candidate for the AZ Senate, and Senator Stahl Hamilton, LD21 candidate for the Arizona House. We would also like to take a minute to thank our co-sponsors, the University of Arizona Divest Program, the Citizens Climate Lobby of Tucson, Arizona, Arizonans for Community Choice, the Tucson Climate Coalition, as well as the Arizona Youth Climate Coalition. We would like to thank you all so much for your invaluable help in putting together tonight's event. Now, before we begin the event proper, we would like to respectfully acknowledge that we, as Tucson citizens, reside on the ancestral lands of the Tohono O'odham Nation and tribe. Their people have been living and working on this land since time immemorial. That being said, let's move on to tonight's exciting events. First, we'll start with a word from our co-sponsors, and then we'll give a quick poll to you, the audience, to gauge your feelings on climate change. Afterwards, the candidates will each provide a brief statement followed by a Q&A session where you can voice your comments, questions, and concerns to them. We'll wrap things up with a short presentation about voter registration and election information, and then the candidates will each give some brief closing statements. So, now that you all know how we're going to be doing things tonight, let's get started with the main event. Lilith Clark, would you like to give a quick word?
Yes, so hi, my name is Lilith, and I'm representing the University of Arizona Divest. So pretty much we are the University of Arizona's only fully student-led environmental activist student organization. And our main goal is to end the university's investments in fossil fuels. So right now they have millions and millions of dollars invested into fossil fuels, and we are trying to get them to stop those investments or divest from those fossil fuels. So I believe that as of 2019, they have around 64 million invested in fossil fuels, which is just mind-blowingly large number. So we're trying to get them to commit publicly by 2029 that they will no longer invest in any fossil fuels. We have been in communications with the University of Arizona Foundation, which is who invests that money, and they've pretty much said we're not going to do that. So we've just been advocating and pushing to get them to divest. Which brings me to, we do have an exciting thing happening tomorrow. There is going to be a rally at the University of Arizona from 12 to 1 on the mall, which is like the main grassy part of the University of Arizona. This is to coincide with Global Climate Strike Day. So if anyone is seeing this and is like, I want to go to that, anyone and everyone from the Tucson community is welcome, and we are trying to get as many people to show up to show that this is not just some little niche issue, that this is the whole community is really behind this issue. So thank you so much. And yeah, I'm excited to hear all the candidates speak today.
All righty, thank you very much. Next, we'll be moving to Michael Collins with the Citizens Climate Lobby.
Thank you, Harrison. So I've been volunteering with Citizens Climate Lobby since 2016 for the last 6 years in both Reno, Nevada and in Tucson. The Citizens Climate Lobby is a nonpartisan climate change policy advocacy group. We're an international group with a local chapter here in Tucson. We advocate for policies to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, such as carbon pricing, carbon dividends, natural sequestration, a quicker transition to renewable energy, and protection for vulnerable populations. We do this by speaking to elected representatives and candidates through events like this, through public outreach, opinions and editorials, and letters to the editor. We have a monthly meeting on the second Saturday of every month, and we'd like to see you there. Check us out at TucsonCCL.com. Thanks so much for having us.
All righty, thank you very much. Next up, we have Amelia Marsh with Arizonans for Community Choice.
Hi, everyone. My name is Amelia. I'm the organizing director with Arizonans for Community Choice, and our organization envisions an Arizona where cities, counties, and communities can choose the energy that comes to their homes and businesses using community choice energy, which is a regulatory model that allows cities to purchase energy on the wholesale market instead of relying on investor-owned incumbent monopoly utilities to provide that energy, while still maintaining a partnership with the utility so that there's still reliability in place. And we'd love if you got involved with our efforts. You can find out more at az4cc.org. That's the letter 4 or the number 4. And yeah, thanks you all for being here.
And thank you for being here and for speaking about your wonderful organization. Next up, we have Garrett Weaver with Tucson Climate Coalition.
Thank you, Harrison. Tucson Climate Coalition is a local group in Tucson which unites individuals and climate groups to coordinate efforts. We work on climate change mitigation and reducing greenhouse gas emissions by promoting community choice energy. Community choice energy will eliminate over half of Tucson's greenhouse gas emissions. And thank you. And I'm really looking forward to hearing from our candidates tonight.
Thank you so much. And now our last co-sponsor, Amelia Kim with the Arizona Youth Climate Coalition.
Thank you, Harrison. Hello, everyone. I'm Amelia Kim with the Arizona Youth Climate Coalition, which is a youth climate organization that seeks to empower teenagers to get involved in the fight for climate justice. We wish to support the protection of natural biodiversity, the liberation of people in unsustainable and dangerous industries, and the cleaner, healthier futures of young people like us, whose planet is in danger. With teams in Phoenix, Mesa, Tucson, Flagstaff, and many other cities throughout the state, the Arizona Youth Climate Coalition works to lobby, protest, and organize across Arizona in the pursuit of a cleaner future. As the organization grows, we will continue to utilize the power of youth to make Arizona a more sustainable state, combating the climate crisis and environmental challenges head-on.
All righty, thank you so much. Once again, thank you to all of our co-sponsors for tonight's event. We couldn't have done it without you, and I highly suggest all of you in the audience go and check them out. That being said, Ed, could you please pull up the poll for our audience to take, so you all can kind of voice some of your concerns about climate change.
So we'll give it about 20 seconds more for everybody to respond. We're getting a lot of responses, especially on that all-important second question.
What I like to hear.
Okay, we'll stop the poll in about 10 seconds. Okay, looks like it's stabilized. We'll end the poll and we'll share the results.
All righty, well, things look pretty even, but it looks like the most critical issue, according to you all in the audience, is carbon emissions. Oh, no, sorry, it is lack of water, but only by 4% over carbon emissions. So those two are pretty close to being tied. And it is an exact tie for Star Trek and Star Wars. We love to see it, a community divided. But let's now move on to our wonderful speakers for tonight's event. Each one of you will have 5 minutes to give your opening statements. And if you have any questions, audience, save them for the Q&A session after the candidates speak. We'll get as many questions as we can in that second portion. So we are going to start off with Lauren Kuby. Your time will begin now.
Thank you. I will begin with a video. It's a 1-minute video. It's a spoken word poem written by Oscar Landa Samano. And let us begin.
I step outside and I'm engulfed by the sun. My lips cracked like a dead riverbed. My lungs black like a coal
Oh dear, I'm so
miner's
sorry.
forehead. All while corruption is rewarded by the tongue. Some will say my words are overdone, that I'm young, naive, and stupid, that the world is not burning, it's not polluted, entrenched in lies long spun. However, they will not lead us askew, because change starts with me and with you. And though they will try to steer what is true, we will rebuild with sustainability anew. Because change is long overdue.
I believe the message of that young man, Oscar, who's an 18-year-old young man from Flagstaff, I believe it with my heart, soul, guts, and intellect. So I'm running for the Arizona Corporation Commission with Sandra Kennedy, and I am running to create a Democratic majority that will attack the climate crisis, that will be where will be profound consumer advocates and corporate watchdogs. The commission has been corrupted in the past and still has heavy influence of the utilities upon it. And I believe that we're in a crisis, a climate crisis. When you look at, and we're on the front lines of that crisis. When you look at wildfires, you look at extreme heat, 53 days where temperatures exceeded 110 degrees in Phoenix last year. When we have a drought that's the worst in 1,200 years. And we have air pollution in Pima and Maricopa counties that gives us an F grade for the American Lung Association. And let's not forget flooding in northern Arizona. And we also have the crisis of the lack of a just and equitable transition for the Navajo Nation and for the Hopi Nation in northeastern Arizona. So I'm running so that we can look at opportunity where there is crisis. And with historic federal investment, I believe that Arizona is poised to lead. We are the sunniest state in the nation, and there's no reason we shouldn't be the solar capital of the nation, if not the world. We have 3 major universities that are contributing so much to battery technology, to understanding the impacts of climate on the most vulnerable, to understanding how we can advance our solar goals and obviously save money because we know solar is cheaper. We are in the midst of a profound drought, and we know that renewable energy and solar energy uses 1% of the water that fossil fuels use. We import most of our electricity from fossil fuel generated power. We could be an exporter of power with our solar capabilities. We are poised to lead, and we are poised to lead a just transition for communities that are being shuttered, whose coal plants are being shuttered. And so I'm running, and I'm running a really tough race because it's midterm year, got to convince people to vote down ballot. But my opponents, it isn't just that they're going to be status quo, folks. They want to move backwards. They want to get rid of any renewable energy standard. We currently have a 15% standard. We don't have a 100% standard by 2035 or 2030, which we should have. But these opponents of ours want to eliminate the renewable energy standard. They do not want an energy efficiency standard. They don't think it's right that utilities give rebates for demand management, for thermostats. You know, they're that radical. And they're also election deniers, which shows the kind of, when you serve in a quasi-judicial role like you do in your commissioner, you need to be able to weigh evidence and take testimony and make decisions that are right for the Arizona people and not right for your political party or a sect within your political party. So I'm running to be a consumer advocate, to be a solar champion, and to be a to be a corporate watchdog. And Sandra Kennedy are running together. You have to vote 2. We need 2 to win, because that way we'll gain a majority on the Corporation Commission, and we'll be able to change Arizona's energy history and our climate future. And I know that 74% of Arizonans agree with me. That's what the polls show from a nonpartisan poll by the Center for the Future of Arizona. So I'm really excited to run and have a lot of energy for this race. And I hope to meet you all soon and meet you tomorrow at the rally.
All righty, thank you very much. Next, we'll be moving to Senator Quezada. You will have 5 minutes beginning right now.
All right, thank you guys so much for having me here. My name is Martin Quesada. I serve the people right now of West Phoenix and Glendale in what is now Legislative District 29 as their state senator. I also serve people of Phoenix, Avondale, and Glendale as an elected school board member on the Pendergast School Board, and I'm an attorney. I've been an attorney in Arizona state and federal courts for the last 12 years, and I am the Democratic nominee to be Arizona's next state treasurer. I know that the treasurer's office doesn't get a lot of fanfare. It doesn't get a lot of hype. It doesn't get a lot of people talking about it. And it's usually one of the more boring offices to run for. But we are in the midst right now of state treasurer's offices being highly politicized and highly weaponized all across the nation. This is really the first election cycle where the polarization, the politicization, and the weaponization of these offices is becoming an issue. And Arizona is at the forefront of it. Arizona is at the forefront because our current state treasurer is an executive officer in an organization that is pushing Republican state treasurers across the nation to push back against efforts to combat climate change. And what's happening is these treasurers across the nation, they're ignoring the fact that global warming is an economic menace, and it damages all sorts of industries in the states, and especially in ours, in Arizona, like agriculture. They cause extreme weather that devastates communities, and it costs taxpayer billions of dollars to recover and rebuild from these extreme weather events, whether these are extreme heat related events, hurricanes, or other extreme weather events across the nation. Instead, they are trying to frame efforts by the private industry, by capitalist corporations who are trying to actually do good. They're having efforts to reduce emissions because they see them as a threat. They see them as a threat to their sustainability as corporations. So they're taking steps to reduce their emissions. They're taking steps to go green. They're taking steps to conserve energy. They're taking steps to conserve water. And the Republicans see this as a threat to employment and a threat to revenue and a threat to their agenda and a threat to their funding sources, which is the fossil fuels industry. So they're taking active measures to take exactly what's happening at the University of Arizona. They're taking all of the state taxpayer dollars that's part of our state portfolio, and they're choosing to divest from corporations that are doing good by the economy, by our environment, by our water. They're moving money away from them, and they're putting money into the fossil fuels industry. So they're literally doing exactly what's happening at the U of A, only on a much grander scale. In terms of how much, instead of tens of millions of dollars, we're talking about billions of dollars at the state level of Arizona. And our current state treasurer is at the front lines of that. She just passed a policy at the Board of Investment level just a couple of weeks ago that would prohibit the consideration of environmental, social governance factors in their investment decisions. So they're actually prohibited from considering whether an investment is bad for our environment, is bad for our climate, and if corporations are taking those issues into consideration, they're divesting from them. So they're punishing them from actually doing that. That's what's happening at the state treasurer's office. It's happening not just here in Arizona, but across the nation. And it's time for us to stand up and use the power of our money and take back the power of our money. No social issue gets addressed without money. And this is the issue. We can really direct where our money goes in the state of Arizona if we take control of this office. And I believe that the treasurer can do that as the chief investment officer, and the treasurer can and should be a voice for good financial policies throughout the state of Arizona, whether that is the budget proposals in the state legislature, whether that is the spending of ARPA funds by the governor, whether that is voucher programs that are being proposed by the legislature, or whether that is selling land to Saudi Arabia to grow alfalfa for Saudi Arabian cattle. All of those things have a dollars and cents impact. The treasurer should be the one speaking out about that. So thank you guys. I look forward to hearing more from you and to having a good conversation. Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much. So much good stuff to think about there. Next up, we have Brian Radford. Your time will begin right now.
Okay, hi everyone. I'm Brian Radford, and I'm running for the Arizona State House of Representatives in District 17, LD 17. That's the northern parts of Tucson and the far east area, Tanque Verde and down. My thing is I'm running for the regular issues, voting rights, human rights, public education, all that good stuff, but also the climate. A big one for me is water and our water usage, but also that our current rep, the current rep that we have now, in this last session, he voted no on every single climate bill. Every climate bill that came up, he just voted no straight across the board. So for me, I support the use of renewables like solar and wind, and also our water resiliency, water conservation. That's a big thing. We're close to Pinal County. Part of my district is in Pinal, which is the two Saddlebrooks. But for Pinal farmers, they're going to be hit the most. Cotton is one of the 5 C's of Arizona. So farming and water use, the way that we do it now with open irrigation and flood irrigation, we're going to have to look at smarter ways of doing that with the least economic impact on the farmers and ranchers that rely on the water for their livelihoods. So I'm interested in supporting ways that we could do that in an inexpensive way to help them convert over, because currently in Arizona, about 70% of that water usage goes to agriculture, farming, and uses like that. So that's why I'm running. I recently was endorsed by Sierra Club in the climate cabinet. So I have climate partners that are partnering with me so that we can flip the district and move progress on some of our renewable energy and do some things positive for our climate. So that's why I'm running.
All righty, thank you so much. Next, we will be moving to Priya Sundarashan. You will have 5 minutes beginning right now.
All right, thank you so much. I hope you can hear me. I'm sorry about any audio or video quality because I'm zooming in from another location. There we go. See? Anyway, I'm Priya Sundarashan. I'm running for Senate in LD 18. I'm very proud to be our Democratic nominee for Senate. I'm born and raised in Tucson. I went to the University of Arizona for law school and a master's in natural resource economics, and I then practiced environmental law for a few years. I am an environmental advocate. That is my career. That is my passion. That's why I'm here, because climate change has driven me throughout my career. I want to stop there. I also want to nod to the previous candidates who spoke. It is absolutely vital that we elect these statewide candidates. We need to get Lauren Kuby into the Corporation Commission along with Sandra Kennedy. If we can flip them, I'm repeating what they said, but if we can flip the majority, there can be so much good energy regulatory work. Regulating our utilities would happen, and we would get so much farther than we currently have. I also want to say Martin Quesada, flipping the treasurer seat. We need to get him in. As he mentioned, there is a movement in these Republican state treasurers to divest from renewables, to divest from companies that are investing in renewables. That is the exact opposite of what we heard our friends at UA Divest, they're trying to get us to divest from fossil fuels. These Republican treasurers are moving away from that. So it is taking us back. It is moving us backwards. We cannot continue on that path. We need to have Democrats in these important positions statewide, up and down the ballot. So going back to me, born and raised in Tucson, I'm an environmental lawyer. I'm an environmental advocate. I am running for state Senate because I want to make sure that we make Arizona a leader in renewable energy. I want to work with a good corporation commission to make that happen. I want to provide incentives so that we can put solar panels up on every building. I'm also going to apologize. I can't see any, if you're giving me timing cues, I might not be able to see it, but just let me know when I'm running close. I want to make sure we have solar panels in as many locations as we can. And make sure that we are transitioning Arizona from fossil fuels to renewable energies in as quickly a manner as we can, because we know that climate change is already occurring. We're seeing the impacts of it. We're seeing that right here in Arizona with drought and our hotter temperatures. We also, speaking of drought, need to fix our water law. So we need to do things like incentivizing better conservation and efficiency in order to make sure that we're using our water wisely. But we also need to plug in the gaps in our Arizona water law, which is run at the state level. We need to make sure that our groundwater is protected, our aquifers are protected. That's a matter of state law, and we can fix it at the state legislature. So you need to elect all of the Democrats that you see talking here about climate change and environmental issues, because they're the ones who care about making sure that we are protecting our water resources in a way that is emboldening our efforts to put water into conservation efficiency and to make sure that we're using our water wisely. So those are my main issues. I'm also a new mom. I have very young kids. So I'm really invested in making sure that we keep Arizona sustainable now and into the future. I grew up here. I want to make sure that Arizona continues to be the wonderful place that I grew up in for my own children. So I'm going to stop there and let questions come in later. Thanks.
All righty, thank you so much. Love that you were promoting your fellow candidates. I think that's great to see. Next up speaking, we have Senator Gabaldon. So you will have 5 minutes beginning right now.
Hi, good evening, everyone. What an honor to be invited to participate this evening, and it's so wonderful to see my fellow Democrats here, and also just the advocacy of all the groups, the organizations that are sponsoring this event. It's just it's an incredible honor. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to begin with just a statement, and then I'm going to start talking about myself. So my commitment to securing the state's water future is more vital than ever. The bill that was passed, the WIFA expansion bill, is a testimony to the progress we can make as a bipartisan legislature body. Arizona's resilience on a sustainable water supply in Arizona cannot be overstated and is increasingly at risk. This bill we passed this session gives Arizona the necessary tools to strengthen water infrastructure, conservation efforts, and long-term augmentation. The WIFA, or the Water Infrastructure Finance Authority, will now be modernized and expanded to address urgent statewide challenges transparently and inclusively. Our state is confronted with the realities of climate change, an over-allocated Colorado River, and decreasing groundwater levels. This bill ultimately creates a financial structure to assist with the diverse needs of both urban and rural areas. And with that being said, this is a crucial that we have individuals, we not only developers and home builders, that we have scientists on this expanded WIFA board. It's very important that we have tribes, and we have people that understand conservation on this. So with that being said, I just wanted to talk a little bit about myself. I'm Rosanna Gabaldon. I've been serving at the legislature since 2013. I spent 8 years in the House, and this is my first term in the Senate, and I'm hope to win my second term at the Senate. But in the House, I actually served 8 years on the Natural Resource Committee. 6 of those years, I was the ranking member. Water sustainability is so important to me because my 3 concerns is subsidence, contamination, and depletion. So all that being said, is very important that the state of Arizona continue to be good stewards. And as some comments that were been made is that we as the legislature, we have the power to make good water policy. We have the ability, and we do have the, hopefully, the collaboration from both sides of the aisle, because climate change, water, whatever under that, forest management, that is all, it is not partisan, it is bipartisan, and we have to continue to address policy that way. And so Priya had actually mentioned policy that is very important. Time and time again, year after year, Democrats have introduced legislation that would address conservation, going into clean energy, and consistently our bills are not being heard. So we really do need to get elected officials that understand that this is an issue. This is something that we have to address, and it's very, very important. I wanted to touch a little bit on the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, the IIJA, which is going to bring funding to actually look at contamination, especially the PFAS that is happening right in our backyard in the city of Tucson. My understanding is over the 5 years, Arizona will get $360 million to address that. What I'm concerned about is making sure that ADQ, the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality, will address it properly, and that our state agencies do get the funding that they are rightly so, because ADWR, Arizona Department of Water Resources, both of those agencies are so underfunded. I am here, I'm a champion for water sustainability. We have to, as a state, come together, not only just on surface water, but we need to really address our groundwater and really look at all parts of the state of Arizona, because we are one state and we are one body and we can be one voice in our future. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next up and lastly, we have Senator Stahl Hamilton. Senator, your time begins now.
Thank you. And good evening, everybody. It is a treat to be here with you all and to be around and share this time with so many like-minded people who are concerned about our climate and our environment, our natural resources, and our water. I am Stephanie Stahl Hamilton. I currently serve in the state Senate representing the old legislative District 10, but I am running for the state House of Representatives in the legislative District 21 so that I can be Senator Gabaldon's seatmate. We've had the pleasure of serving together, and I just appreciate her mentorship and all of the work that she has put into her work at the legislature in regards to natural resources, energy, and water. And I look forward to locking a step with her this next coming session. I began my early childhood years on Navajo tribal lands. I lived up in northeastern Arizona and had miles and miles and miles of land as my front and backyard. I could just run forever and, spent my afternoons and evenings until the sun started to go down and my parents would whistle for us to come inside and get washed up for dinner. My roots are here in Arizona, and I developed a deep love for our land and for the diversity in our state. I ran for the legislature because my husband's a teacher, an educator. I've got 3 children coming up through the public school system. I ran for the legislature because providing and finding affordable, accessible, quality healthcare for my children was a challenge. And I not only was concerned about my own family, but the families in my community. And so I ran for the legislature because that's where I knew the decisions were being made. And lo and behold, I got elected and thought I would be serving on the Education Committee and Health and Human Resources. And lo and behold, I got appointed to Natural Resources, Energy, and Water. And little did I know at that time what a fantastic fit that would be. I have always had a passion for the natural world, and it has been my life's experience that has led me down this path to run for office and to want to serve the people in the state of Arizona while while my children were really little, we live in Tucson, and I wanted to find a way for them to be able to spend their summers outdoors, outside. And in the desert, that's hard to do. And I became the executive director of a summer camp, and that was located up in the White Mountains in Greer, Arizona. And during my tenure as the executive director of that summer camp, we suffered the effects of the wildfire, the largest recorded wildfire in the state of Arizona to date. And boy, oh boy, did I learn a lot about forests, the super fires that we're having, as well as forest management and forest health. And again, that experience certainly came in handy as I was serving on the Natural Resources, Energy, and Water Committee. I have traveled to every corner of this state. I have enjoyed what it is that our state has had to offer as far as the natural world. We have camped everywhere. We have canoed, we have kayaked in rivers and lakes. My family has thoroughly loved Arizona and has loved exploring Arizona. That being said, it's much harder to get into a kayak and kayak rivers. Our rivers are drying up. I have learned here in Tucson, just the generations of people in my new district who have suffered the effects of contaminated water. We know that the farmers are going to have to fallow some of their fields because of how our water is divided and water rights. All of this is a direct result. These super fires, all of this is a direct result of climate change. And I will tell you that we are hard pressed to have those honest conversations about climate change and the effects of that on our state. So
I'm so sorry to interrupt. You were making some amazing points, but I'm afraid your time has elapsed. But we'll give you some.
Can I just have a concluding sentence? Just real quick.
Sure. Yeah.
I really was just getting ready to wrap up. So I have to say that first, for me, I have been so pleased to serve on Natural Resources, Energy, and Water. I've got a lot of ideas of how we can combine conservation of water and clean energy to help move this state forward. I am passionate about it, and I am committed to making this happen for the people in our state. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you to all of our candidates. You all raised some excellent points about climate change in our state and beyond. But now it's time for you, the audience, to ask some questions, get some clarifications on some of their points, and really get to know the candidates. So you can feel free to pop any and all questions you have in that Q&A, and we'll start filtering those out to the contestants.
Yeah, and so far we have one question so far. So if you have a question for the candidates, please put it in the Q&A. If you see a question that you like, and please upvote it so that we can propagate it up. So I think our first question that we have is from Peggy Wenrick, and she asked, can you post here contact info for the candidates and sponsors? So I think this is a great opportunity for our candidates to explain how we can learn more about their campaigns and what attendees or what viewers can do to help their campaigns.
I'll start. I know we can't post on the chat though, so I'm laurencuby.com, or you go to kennedyandcuby.com. You'll get to both of us, Sandra Kennedy and I, and always available by phone as well, 602-790-2156. But perhaps the host could post our contact information.
I'm sure we can. Arrange that. We can put all the contact information in the chat.
This is Ed Harrison. I think I've just clicked it over, so I think our panelists can now share on the chat with everybody.
Oh, perfect. If you have any information that you all want to share via chat, so your contact information and your websites, please go ahead and put those in the chat so our audience can go and take a look at all that. All right, let's move on to the next question.
Yeah. So we got another question here, and I like this question from an anonymous attendee. What can each of you do to promote community choice energy?
I'll start by answering that because the Corporation Commission could start a study, which sounds lame, but that's the thing that has to be done. There has to be a study that's begun and a docket, you know, in the process the Corporation Commission embraces, but there needs to be enabling legislation from the legislature. And that might be tough, but we need to begin the process. And the way to begin is by starting a study and getting lots of stakeholder support and engagement from the public and from those that are interested in seeing community choice energy succeed. And I, for one, want to see it succeed. I think cities are the incubators of innovation. As a council member and vice mayor of Tempe, we passed a 100% renewable energy goal. I was so proud that day in 2018, but we're only at 18%. Because we need to have larger signals from the top. And that means a renewable energy standard of 100%, which we don't have in our current commission. So I myself would think community choice energy is one way to really make true our transition to clean energy.
All right, thank you very much. Since this was a question posed to every one of the candidates, I think I'm just going to go ahead and go down the list, all of you here. So next up to answer will be Senator Quezada.
Yeah, you know, I think that this is one of those issues where me being a chief financial officer that's supposed to speak on financial issues, this is a huge financial issue. I mean, look, the future of energy on this planet is affordable, clean energy. So the quicker we move in that direction, the better it's going to be for us, for our economy, the better it's going to be for us financially. So putting this or making this argument from a dollars and cents perspective, I think is a way that the state treasurer can contribute to this advocacy. And I think that this is something where me and Lauren Kuby and Sandra Kennedy and Anna Tovar, we could go down together as partners to the legislature and propose these exact changes to our legislative leaders and tell them why this is a good movement forward, why it makes sense just in terms of energy, why it makes sense for our planet, and why it makes dollars and cents sense as well.
All righty, thanks so much. Next up to speak is Mr. Radford.
Okay, well, just like Martine just said, clean energy is cheaper. Solar is certainly cheaper than fossil fuel energy that we're doing right now. But to see more competition among the energy providers would bring prices down. Competition usually means there's more choices for consumers, but the clean energy is definitely a lot cheaper, and I would like to see us move toward using more of that instead of digging coal out of the ground or using natural gas and fossil fuels.
All righty, thanks so much. Before we move on to the next speaker, I would actually like to say to the audience, you can upvote the questions that are being posed in the Q&A chat. So if there's anything that you particularly want to see answered, we're going in kind of order of popularity. So hit that upvote button if it's a question that you really like and you want to see our contestants answer. That being said, next up, Mrs. Sundaration.
Sure. Hi. Sorry if there's background noise. I am very interested in seeing that our state and our local jurisdictions are empowered to make the choices that they are interested in doing and provide that laboratory experiment within our state to try out issues like community choice, to try out potential ideas, for themselves and make sure that the state gets out of the way. Right now, I think we've seen a lot of preemption legislation that takes the choice away from our local jurisdictions, our cities and our counties, to do things like, to try out community choice, to, ban fossil gas hookups if that's what they choose. These are things that we need to allow our cities and our counties to try out. And so that's something that I think the legislature can just broadly focus on. I defer, of course, to my colleagues here who have experience in the legislature on that. But I think those are things that we should really focus on when we want to make sure that we have these trial, experiments really at these local levels, so that we can see these ideas tested out at the local level and then take those good ideas elsewhere around the state And I don't think I think studies are good, but I say let's let the legislature pass that authority right now, so that we're not waiting on that authority when the studies come through and say that this might be a good idea.
All righty, thanks so much. Next up, we have Senator Gabaldon.
Thank you. And thank you for the question. Several of my fellow panelists actually brought up local control. And that's something that we as the legislature, we continue to have conversations where, sometimes it's good to be big brother, but other times we need to let, our municipalities and counties do what they do best, and that's serve their community. They know their constituencies much better than we at the legislature. More so, I always believe that it's so important to have your local elected officials be the ones that represent you, because you deal with them much more. In regards to clean energy, I think it's very important that there is a choice, that individuals can pick what kind of energy that they're going to be getting. So when it comes to solar panels, etc., we need to make it more affordable. I'd say the majority of my constituency cannot afford to install solar panels in their homes. So the thing is that we need to be able to give them the option. So when it comes to clean energy, we need to create these green zones, which I've learned. I've been to several conferences to actually talk about these green zones that actually are just for EVs, electric vehicles. The opportunity we have electric vehicles that are being built right here in the state of Arizona. So let me kind of go to a little side note regarding broadband. Broadband is going to be able to help us in regards to these EV charging stations. So I think they go hand in hand. We just created in the last budget, the state, to do a broadband office through the Arizona Commerce Authority. So those are the kind of things where we need to continue as the legislature to really open up the doors with ideas that maybe we don't even know about, but we need to let the experts, the people that know how we can do this and do it right, and be able to have those ideas and be able to pass legislation that's going to be able to open the doors for the state of Arizona to become a green state, and to have more buildings that save energy, and to have individuals that we are able to, in the state of Arizona, to be able to have everybody be able to use clean energy. And it's going to, it's taking too long with this climate change. And just my last comment is look at the candidate and make sure you vote for someone who wants to look for the future of the state of Arizona, and not just 5 years from now, but 50 years from now. Thank you.
All righty, thank you. And last for this question, Senator Stahl-Hamilton.
Yes, thank you. Absolutely. Community choice. As I said, I have traveled every inch of this state. And what we know is that the state of Arizona is very diverse. The sizes of our cities and our towns, and what it will take in regards to infrastructure if we're looking at making moves to renewable energy. And I think our communities need to be able to make those decisions, be empowered to make those decisions, and choose what's going to be right for their community. I will piggyback on and let Lauren, I agree. A study committee is, yes, the way to begin. We need to look at the diversity of our state and see what this is going to look like statewide. Yes, we make the laws and the decisions that apply to the whole state, but our state is so very diverse. And I do think that we need to tease that out a little bit and see what that's going to look like. It sure would be nice if we could find the funding to shift the infrastructure. And that's a little bit of what Senator Gabaldon has touched upon as well. As we are making these steps and a move towards clean energy, it requires a huge shift in the infrastructure, and our state being prepared to be able to make these shifts to clean energy. We need to be able to not only generate it, but we need to be able to store it, and then we need to be able to transmit it. Those are three three pieces of this that we don't have in place comprehensively statewide, and community choice just might be one of those avenues to get us there a little bit quicker or more quickly. And then just overarching, this will be my last comment on this, that there is a justice piece to all of this, and that was alluded to as well. And that if we're looking at rooftop solar, that's not accessible to everybody. And if we're looking at putting in EV charging stations for electric cars, not everybody can afford to purchase an electric car. So as we're moving forward with community choice, we need to have choices available for people across the economic spectrum. We have to look at what maybe renewable energy looks like for multi-family housing as well. And these are things that need to also be a part of that conversation that I think community choice can get at.
All righty, thank you so much. Some really great answers for that question. For the sake of time, and so we have time to answer all the questions, for every other question, we're going to limit it to 1 or 2 responses from 1 or 2 candidates. Garrett, what will be our next question?
Yeah, and there's a lot of really great questions that are being asked in the question and answer session. Thank you all so much for the questions that you're asking, and thank you for. I'd like to really thank the audience for giving a thumbs up to the questions they like. Really appreciated. So our next question comes from Janice Segal, and the question is, what specific solutions do you have for our water issues?
All right. I think that is a great question for Senators Gabaldon and Stahl-Hamilton. So Senator Gabaldon, why don't you start us off?
Gary, can you give me just the last part of that question, please?
Absolutely. What specific, and here's the question again. What specific solutions do you have for our water issues?
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Janet, for that question. In regards to short term, 200 million was put to conservation. So one of those, as part of that conservation could be, as someone had mentioned, following the agriculture. Also, we can go into what's called direct potable reuse, DPR, where we can use much more water. I talk about local control. There's been municipalities that actually want to use what's called the purple pipe, which is the gray water. So the gray water goes directly from the home as opposed to all the water, right? Because not all the water that goes into our wastewater treatment facilities are treatable, right? I mean, I guess we could, but the purple pipe with the direct gray water use, long term, we look at getting that next bucket of water somewhere. We talked about desal, we talked about building infrastructure. So this new WIFA expansion of WIFA is going to be addressing that. And again, I'm very excited to see what they're going to do, because the state of Arizona has appropriated $1 billion over the next 3 years. And my hope is, and all of you, and this is my last comment, is all of you can be part of that solution. Please speak up and be part of the public participation when this board is actually assembled, so that you can talk about what you know, because I think there's a lot of people that are a lot smarter than me in regards to that next bucket of water and how we can use and reuse every drop. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And lastly for this question, Senator Stahl-Hamilton.
Yes, thank you. So water policy in Arizona is very complex, and I think one of the things that needs to be addressed, because we are heading into a tier 2A shortage of water, which means there are going to be lots of cutbacks and what gets allocated to different people. But one of the things in Arizona, we have 22 tribes, and out of those 22 tribes, only 11 of those tribes have had their water rights settled. There's a lot of lawsuit, and we still have 11 tribes who need to know what their water rights are before we go and divvy up where all this water goes in Arizona and who gets what, because we have quite a few systems of how we allocate water in this state. We can't allocate for anybody until we know what the water law is. And so I've been pushing as much as I can, because this rests and resides at the federal level, but I have been pushing to start seeing how we can apply pressure to get those water rights taken care of. Now, beyond that, Brian Redford mentioned that 70% of our water goes to agriculture. It's 74% does go to agriculture. And one of the things that I've been captured by, and this is very specific, and it's along the lines of conservation, is operation called agrivoltaics. And that is taking solar panels and placing them over farmland. And this is a triple win. So what happens when you take solar panels and you put them over farmland? Well, number one, you cut your water usage by a third. It only takes a third of the water to water the crops. Those crops typically have their yield increases by double. So you double your yield and you're generating electricity at the same time. But the fun little caveat and the sort of the wonky piece of all of this is that at a certain degree in temperature Fahrenheit, those solar panels become less effective. Just like if we were to put our cell phone out in the sun and as it becomes hot, it doesn't work as effectively. Well, the evaporation coming up off of those crops has a cooling effect on the solar panels, which then returns their efficacy. This is something that would take a pilot program. It would take that building of the infrastructure, but it does two things. I mean, it does three things as far as producing and keeping our farmers in business. And some of our farmers have been farming for over 6 generations. This is personal to our families in Arizona, but it generates clean electricity and it conserves 66% of water that is typically going to be, that is being used to water crops. So it's a triple win. Anybody who will listen to me, I am always talking about how to combine this conservation of water use and generation of electricity to make our state so much more sustainable.
All righty, thank you so much. I think it's time to move on to the next question. So what do we got, Garrett?
Yeah, we had a couple more questions come up in the last few minutes. Hopefully we'll be able to get to all of our questions tonight. Our next question comes from Robert Bulacek, and this is directed to Senator Quezada. Can the Arizona Treasurer divest from fossil fuel investments alone, or would it require legislation?
Great question. Actually, the answer to that is that it's kind of a mixture of both. But the exciting thing is that the Treasurer's got a lot of power in this sense, and a lot of flexibility in terms of what the Treasurer chooses to invest or divest from. The legislature basically sets the boundaries, but those boundaries are pretty wide right now. And so the Treasurer really has control of that portfolio by his or herself, with the oversight of the Board of Investment. The Board of Investment's a board of 5 people. The Treasurer is the chair of that board. The governor appoints 2 members of that board. The Treasurer appoints the other 2. So quick math, the Treasurer always has the majority of that board. So essentially the Treasurer gets to advance his or her own agenda in terms of that investment portfolio with the oversight of the Board of Investment. I can tell you now that I would assume that if I am elected treasurer, the legislature is going to try to restrict a lot of those activities. That would be legislation I'm going to have to be pushing back upon in this next legislative session if I do become treasurer. So that is a fight that is on the table, but as of right now, the treasurer can do a lot of that on their own.
All right, thank you. Are we good to ask another question, Harrison?
Yes, we are.
All right. I'd like to ask another question that kind of relates to that, which is that if, assuming that we have a majority of Republicans elected in the legislature, how would we be able to work across the aisle to advance our climate agenda?
All righty. Well, I think that is a good question for, let's get an answer from Priya Sundaresh.
Hi, sorry, I am
in the car, can you repeat the question?
Absolutely. And didn't catch the person who asked this question, so my apology to the person who asked it. But actually, yeah, this is from an anonymous attendee. Actually, I just found it. If your party is not in the majority, how will you work across the aisle to pass climate policy?
That's a tough one. I do happen to think that we're going to get the best climate policy with Democrats in the majority. That said, we can't waste any time given. And so we will work to make those relationships across the aisle as we can. We will talk. I'm sure that my fellow the legislators who are already in the legislature can speak to this experience. There are people across the aisle who have constituents who are facing these dire environmental consequences right now. For example, people in rural Arizona whose wells are drying up. That is not a partisan occurrence. This is occurring to people on both sides and to people who have elected representatives on both sides of the aisle. And so that is an issue that is affecting them immediately. And so we need to make sure that we are partnering and lifting up their stories and making sure that even if their representative is a Republican, that we are able to address these issues that are affecting everyday Arizonans right now. So that's like on water issues, on energy issues. I think we can find common ground on these fiscal areas where we know that, you know, as was mentioned, we know that solar energy is quickly becoming the cheapest source of energy that we can produce. We need to talk about how ending fossil fuel subsidies, including at the state level, is just going to be a fiscally responsible solution going forward. So I think we can find that common ground if we can try to build those relationships. I do think that we are going to have the best chance at really, really good climate policy if we can focus our efforts on flipping and getting Democratic majorities.
May I add something? So if it is a Republican majority, we're going to have to play continued defense. And the Democratic caucus did a really good job in defeating some terrible bills that were set to weaken the powers of the Corporation Commission because they see the future. And so there's going to be continued need to fight back against these preemption bills that are trying to harm the Corporation Commission.
All righty, thank you both very much. Let's move on to the next question.
Yeah, definitely. We've got a lot of great questions coming through. I think we'll go with a question by Barbara Warren, which is, how realistic would it be to place solar panels all along the whole length of the CAP?
Well, I think that's pretty specific to Senator Stahl Hamilton, so we'll pass the mic over to you.
Yeah, I was just typing in an answer to that. A couple of things. So yes, we have the Central Canal project, but we also have SRP with their water canals. And I asked that question. I was on the SRP helicopter tour and we're flying over these canals. I know they've done it in California. And I asked the question of, you guys generate electricity. Why wouldn't you cover these canals with solar panels also to reduce evaporation? And it got very quiet in that helicopter. So, but it is very realistic. And to me, it just seems like if SRP is in the business of generating electricity, and we are concerned about water, which they also have a big hand in, in the state. It just seems to me, why not combine the two? I love the question. It is something I absolutely will lean into. And I certainly look forward to partnering with our friends at the Corporation Commission to see if we can actually move the state in this direction.
All righty, thank you very much. Let's move on. What do we got next, Garrett?
Yeah, so this next question is from Clifford Anderson. And the question is, what is the Arizona legislature's role and the role of statewide elected officials, e.g., Arizona Corporation Commission and Treasurer, with respect to taking maximum advantage of funds from the Inflation Reduction Act?
Wow, that is a very good question. I think that one's gonna have to go to our treasurer here, Mr. Quezada.
Yeah, I think that's actually a perfect one for the state treasurer. Again, being that advocate for the effective use of taxpayer dollars, both state level and the federal level, that includes advocating and ensuring that we receive the max benefit from any federal legislation that gets passed. Ultimately, we want those taxpayers' dollars back here in the state of Arizona. We want to make sure that those dollars are returned back to you and invested right here in the people of Arizona. The treasurer can and should be an advocate for that. So basically, the state treasurer has a platform to speak on these issues. I intend to use that platform. Up to this point, our treasurer hasn't used that platform at all. We hear our attorney general speak about legal issues. We hear our superintendent speak about education issues. We hear our secretary of state speak about elections issues. We never hear the treasurer speak about financial issues. And this is a perfect example of that. What can we do to ensure we get the maximum return from that legislation that was passed at the federal level? How can the treasurer advocate on behalf of the state of Arizona with our members of Congress, with our 2 United States senators, and at Capitol Hill to advocate for the return of those dollars here to Arizona, and to put better elements into that legislation so that we can ensure that we get better returns on those dollars as well. I think it's the primary role of the state treasurer to be that advocate.
All righty,
Can I add on to that? Thank you, Harrison. Is what's really important is that when we do receive the federal funding, that it's put back into the state, and so the state treasurer, as Martina was saying, is they can be a good steward and actually sit there and say, we do have this federal funding. It's got maybe a time limit on it. Let's make sure that the funding is able to assist many more Arizonans. And so the fact of the matter is it's unfortunate that we are receiving federal funding and we're not, this is my opinion, we're not utilizing it to the greater need that our most vulnerable population is actually not being addressed. These needs that are very, very important to the state of Arizona is not there. And the legislature needs to continue to advocate for every citizen, for every person in the state of Arizona. And what we can do is we need to educate all of you so that when we do have federal funding, that it's going to be used in the best way.
All righty, thanks so much. Some great answers there. What will be our next question?
Yeah, so our next question comes from Monique Laraway. And the question is, what are some hopeful messages you can share with us about the achievability of a more sustainable state?
I think that's a great question for Mr. Radford. So why don't you take it away?
Well, first of all, like Priya alluded to earlier, we need to flip the legislature first. A Dem majority would definitely give us more ability to get some more progress on renewable energy and some things that we want to see happen. However, if we do still have a Republican majority, or if it is a 50-50 split, we can work at creative ways to work across the aisle. My most recent debate with my fellow candidates in my district, we found that both sides share issues of water, the want to have lower utility bills. So like was alluded to earlier, if we can stress the affordability and the lower cost, and that's what's key. If we could show that it is more affordable and less cost, then maybe we can persuade some on the other side to join us and get some of this stuff passed. But if we can get the blue majority, then yeah, we can do more. But if not, we'll just have to work harder to work together.
All righty, thank you very much. Some great words of wisdom there. We've only got enough time for about 1 or 2 more questions. So let's make these last ones count.
Yeah, our next question comes from Emily Rocky, and it looks like Senator Stahl Hamilton has already typed in an answer. It's an interesting question. And the question is, are you willing to advance legislation that could be considered radical, i.e. such as a plastic bottle or plastic bag ban and banning grass lawns at residential homes?
Let me just add on real quickly to that. And I don't know who talked about the preemption laws. I think it might have been you, Lauren, because this actually, and I should really defer to her because this really resides in her wheelhouse. As far as these types of bans go. So I'll let you take it away, Lauren.
Thanks. What's one of the first pieces of legislation I tried to get passed as a city council member? It's sort of gateway legislation, right? You pass a plastic bag ban, a single-use plastic and styrofoam ban. There's all this kerfuffle, not so radical. People learn to live with and say, oh, that was easy. What can I do now? Maybe composting. Maybe there's other things that we can do as a city to save money and to help have a more sustainable world. So, you know, I sued the state. I was the plaintiff in a lawsuit that the Center for the Law and the Public Interest represented me. Eventually was dismissed. I wasn't considered ripe enough because my plastic bag ban hadn't passed yet. It was about to pass, and then a preemption law was passed to prevent it. So a ban on bag bans was passed. So I think what the legislature needs to do is overturn that legislation and allow local decision-making, allow cities to clean up their plastic waste. It's ridiculous. We should have local control over those issues. We collect the trash. You don't call Senator Kavanaugh or Representative Kavanaugh, whatever he is now. You don't call him if your trash isn't picked up. You call the city. So the city should have the right to limit single-use plastic.
So, and I'll piggyback. I just attended, oh my gosh, it was from all the cities and towns throughout Arizona, a seminar led by the Morrison Institute, ASU, in regards to waste management and within, and also looking at the business community. And there is a movement afoot to have local jurisdictions see how they can move forward with practices before we can get these laws overturned, these preemption laws. So it was really based on that conversation. And I came away very, very hopeful that the business community and the local city and town governments actually want to take steps in this direction. And sometimes, you know, there are more people out there wanting these things to happen than the few people who are making the decisions at the you know, the legal level. And I think sometimes those movements can actually help turn the tide when it comes to the legislative bodies. But this is an issue that truly, because of the preemption laws, resides at the very local level.
And it's important to note that preemption in itself is not a bad thing. You can preempt a discriminatory law, for example, but it's that corporate special interests are behind it. ALEC, lobbyists, the fossil fuel industry, that's where the danger lies.
All right. Very quickly, other states are setting the example, and we as the state of Arizona can look at that and we can model it, and we can duplicate those efforts, because there's a lot of examples across the United States.
All righty. Well, thank you all very much. I'm afraid we've run out of time for the Q&A section, so we're going to have to end that here. We've still got a little bit of time left, and we're going to, there's still going to be a little bit left to talk about. So if you, the candidates, want to type out some responses to the questions that have yet to be answered during this time, feel free to do so. But unfortunately, the time for live discussion has ended. That being said, next up we have some volunteer registration and election information presented to us by Shayla Patel and Tanish Doshi. So you will have 6 minutes to do that. Take it away.
Yeah, hi, my name is Shayla Patel. I am an organizer with Arizona Youth Climate Coalition, and I'm going to be sharing some things about voting. And we're just gonna kind of go through this PowerPoint and talk to you about voting. So registration, it's a big thing for young voters this year. Make sure that you register by October 11th. The registration link will be put in the chat right now. You can also use this QR code and scan your screen right now and access the registration link. And then also, if you're already registered and you think you're already registered to vote, you need to make sure to check your registration status, because sometimes it can change and sometimes the rules and the kind of laws change for that. So you need to make sure that you're checking, that you know where to go and vote, and that you're ready to vote. And then, oh, there we go. Okay. So voting in person, there's two types of ways you can vote: voting in person, and then Tanisha's going to take it away with voting by mail. But election day is November 8th, and you'll show up to the polls. You can find your polling location by the my.arizona.vote, and it's specific to every single person that's voting. When you show up to the polls, you need to make sure that you bring one of these 3 items below. And then polling locations are open from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. on election day. So make sure you get there before or after it opens. And then, Nish, you can take it away.
Yeah, sure. So if you're going to be voting by mail instead of in person, the deadline to request your ballot by mail is October 28th, and the deadline to mail back your ballot is November 1st. If you don't mail it back in time, or you just want to drop it off, you can drop off your ballot at a polling location by 7 p.m. on an election day. And you can request a ballot by mail if you haven't already done so at the Arizona Secretary of State's website at that link. I know personally my family received information about their ballot today in the mail. So yeah, everybody should do that if that's easier for them. And then finally, after you're registered to vote, you're planning to vote, you can still do more. You can get involved and help other people. With all of these different resources, there's a lot of different opportunities. You can register people to vote, you can canvass, attend outreach events, candidate meet and greets like this, phone bank, and a lot more. So some of the resources we have is the Arizona Dems, When We All Vote, and the Environmental Voter Project. All of those links should be in the chat. And finally, if you are over the age of 16, you can work at a polling station. So you can look into what your county's poll working information, and the details of that should also be in the chat. And that's another really great way to support our elections.
Yeah, so thank you for tuning into that. And you can kind of join our organization. We'll put the link in the chat. If you're ages 13 to 22, we are welcoming members. So that link will go into the chat and you can hang out with us.
Alrighty, well, thank you all so much for helping get our audience acquainted with the voter registration process. I know that's extremely important with midterms coming up. Now it is time to have some closing statements from each one of our candidates before we close out. So let's start off with Mrs. Kuby. You will have 1 minute to speak and give a little closing remark.
Thank you, everyone. I'm so conscious of the fact that every decision that we make as elected officials, and especially the Corporation Commission related to climate, related to water and energy, impacts the generations now being born, the generations that are younger than me, frankly. So we need to be really conscious of that. We need to start our renewable energy transition, really supercharge it with historic federal investment. We are poised to lead in Arizona, and we are poised to have our actual values represented in the elected officials that are going to take action. So I am about to be a grandma. I'm so excited about that. And as I described, my daughter had an ultrasound and we learned that it's going to be a Democrat, so we're especially excited. But truly, I'm here for the next generation. I suffer from generational guilt, and I'm trying to relieve my guilt by running for office and trying to enact a renewable energy transition for our state. Thank you.
All righty, thank you very much. Next up, we have Senator Quezada.
All right, thank you guys all for having me here tonight. It's been great to chat with you all. I love the intelligence of your questions, and I'm really excited about the future of Arizona with you all leading us in that effort. The state treasurer's office has one of the most radical candidates running for office here as well. We all know how radical the other ones are for governor, for U.S. Senate, for Secretary of State. The treasurer is just as bad. They are hoping that you won't pay attention to this office. They're hoping that this one will continue to fly under the radar. But if you care about our planet, especially about our planet, especially in the investment into corporations that are doing good for our planet, you need to care about the state treasurer's office. You need to put somebody in there who's going to do good work and who's going to work with you, alongside you, and help empower you as well to continue doing the great work that you do. My name is Martin Quesada. I would appreciate your vote to be Arizona's next state treasurer. Thank you, guys.
All right, thank you so much. Next up, we have Mr. Radford.
Okay, I'm Brian Radford, and I'm running for the House because I'm running to protect our future. Climate needs to be at the forefront of every decision that's made at that legislature. I'm kind of disappointed that our current rep voted no on every single climate bill that came across, and I will certainly do differently. I will do my best to keep climate at the forefront. And every decision that's made, I will be thinking, how is this going to impact us, our water? How is this going to impact our energy? And is it a good decision for not only my district, but for Arizona? So that's why I'm running. Brian Radford for State House, District 17.
All righty, thank you very much. Moving on to Mrs. Sundaresan.
Hi, everyone. Just in closing, I'm Priya Sundaresan. I'm the Senate candidate for LD 18. Like everyone said, thank you so much for your time and for being engaged. I want not only your vote for me or for these other candidates, I want you to go and talk to 5 friends and remind them, if they're not registered to vote, the voter registration deadline is October 11th. They need to register to vote. And then they need to vote up and down the ballot. And then they need to remember that for the Arizona House, they get 2 votes. For Corporation Commission, they get 2 votes. So they need to make sure that they use every single vote that they can to support our climate candidates up and down the ballot. And that's the only way that we will be able to flip these very, very important seats and actually make the kind of change that we need in order to address climate change, mitigate climate change, and stop the worst effects that we know are. So thank you so much.
All right, thank you very much. Next up, we have Senator Gabaldon.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for participating. This is a very important topics, and it was such an honor to be part of an esteemed panel this evening. And what really encouraged me was to see all these young people that were actually part of the panel and the participation, because they are our leaders. And when I look at Arizona, those are the ones that are going to be voting for our future leaders. And keep in mind that really look at the candidate and know that the Democratic Party is the party of the people. We care about our future. So water sustainability, the poll just said something very much, the lack of water. So we as at the legislature, and I would like to continue to serve you in the new legislative district 21, is I will be advocating for water sustainability, for clean energy, for making sure that Arizona moves in the right direction. Again, my name is Rosanna Galardon, and I humbly ask for your vote.
All righty, thank you very much. And last but certainly not least, we have Senator Stahl-Hamilton.
Yes, thank you once again for allowing me to be a part of this event tonight. I think for me, it's as simple as this. If we do not have enough water to drink and we do not have clean air to breathe, none of the other policies we make will matter. We will not have a future. So I am committed to the people of Arizona. I am committed to doing what I can to help pass sound and smart legislation. And as long as the voters want me in office, I am happy to serve. Look me up, Stahl-Hamilton for az.com. You can reach out to, there's a contact button. Should you have any questions, I will respond to those emails directly, but you can learn more about me and my platform. And I appreciate your time tonight. Thank you.
All righty. Well, once again, let's give a huge hand and big thank you to our candidates. They did an amazing job speaking tonight, and they really knocked it out of the park with all the questions that they were given. Let's give a huge thank you to our co-sponsors, without whom this event would not have been possible. I highly encourage you to go and check out each of their organizations. A lot of them have put their websites in the chat, so go check them out. They're doing some really amazing work. And last but not least, we'd like to thank you, the audience, for coming, for showing up, for giving your insightful and amazing questions, and giving these candidates a time to shine. Thank you all so much, and we'll see you in the polls. Take care.